Hi everyone, welcome to the 14th episode of Native Narratives. And today, on the occasion of Women's Day, we want to talk about women in STEAM. Now, you might have heard about STEM, right? What is STEAM? STEAM is science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics. Some of us here, the ARISA team, have had experiences in these fields, and today we are going to talk about our interdisciplinary backgrounds, the impact we have been able to create through these backgrounds, and what are some of the issues that we have seen and how we are trying to tackle them one by one at ARISA Foundation. We would like to start with Kohinoor, and yeah, would love to hear about your journey from when you began to now here at ARISA.
So, hi everyone. You already know me. I founded Arisa because of, let's say one reason. There were many reasons, but the biggest reason was I couldn't find a place to do everything that I wanted under one umbrella. So it was fairly selfish. It didn't start out as I want to change the world thing. It's still not. Like, I know it's very difficult to do that. I do want to make impact, but it started out with, okay, what can I create where all different perspectives and all my different interests can come together. And that's how Arisa happened, because I did want to have some part of dance and art in it. I wanted to have part of psychology, a part of neuroscience, a part of inclusion, part of open science, open research. I wanted a diverse team. I wanted different perspectives, and that's what gave birth to Arisa. Yeah, that's pretty much it. And I founded it, and I'm very, very happy to have amazing people on board, like Tanvi, who was my first hire a couple of years ago. So, Tanvi, maybe you want to introduce yourself.
First, hi, I'm Tanvi, and some of you might have seen me on a previous podcast. But I am a research assistant and I work with social media for ARISA Foundation. ARISA came to me when at the beginning of my career, and I was really, really blessed to start my actual career at Arisa, where I got to do a lot of fun things. I still get to do so many new fun things every time. It's not like I had to pick one stream, one vocation and stick with it, although it is what I'm doing, but my vocation brings me so many things and it's a very fulfilling experience because it's arts, it's crafts, it's science, it's talking, it's research, and it's all fun. So thanks, Kohinoor.
Thank you for being on the team, Tanvi. Sanjana, maybe you want to.
Yeah, sure. Hello everyone. I am Sanjana. I am the community outreach manager at Arisa. I have a counseling background, and before Arisa, I was working with schools. I was working with underprivileged children and at an adoption center. And post that, I felt like I wanted to explore psychology a bit more, look into what sort of research is happening, kind of update myself in, about the newer practices. What else can I do in psychology? And that is, I have known Kohinoor for a long time, and Kohinoor founded Arisa, and we felt like, okay, this might be a good time to work together. I joined as a community outreach manager, and it has been such an interesting journey because it was not just about psychology. It was also, like Tanvi mentioned, it was about science, it was about arts, it was about meeting so many people doing such interesting things that I feel without the projects that Arisa has or without Arisa, I would not have met them. And the entire journey has just been so inspiring, and I feel like it's an amazing learning for me. So yeah, and the journey continues for me now.
I still remember when I actually spoke to you and I was like, do you want to join Arisa? It was, I was trying to recruit you obviously, but you were still working with your previous NGO,
Yes.
so I wasn't sure if you were going to say yes. But I'm glad you did. So
So I am so glad I did that.
awesome. I think Shreya, you joined after, no, Madhura joined after Sanjana.
Yes. Hi, I am a Bharatnatyam dancer. I have studied economics, studied French, studied dance, and I've started with Teach for India. But then I think in all these places, although I was able to create some impact, especially with public schools or even like audiences in the US and Canada when I was working with an edtech startup. I sort of felt like a misfit because a lot of times, even for my parents, it was difficult to explain what their daughter does for a living. And here, there were no questions. Like people just understood, okay, you do this, you also do that. But okay, this is how you combine all of that. And the entire team is like that. So I think it sort of fits. And I'm very, very glad to be here. And I think I used to be part of Kohinoor's research surveys when she was at UPenn. And it always used to be so interesting to be a part of that. And although I do not have the background in neuroscience or psychology, I was like, I was not even sure if, I would even be at ARISA because I was like, okay, what value am I going to add here? But then I just randomly reached out to her and it happened. So yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, well, happy to have you on board as well. I also remember you were one of my most loyal participants. So thank you. For anyone who's listening and who's done the research surveys, we all know how difficult it is to get participants. So thanks, Madhura. Shreya, do you want?
Yes.
Yeah.
So, hello everyone, I am Shreya. I'm a research assistant at ARISA. I joined 8 months ago. This is my 8th month, I think. And I was a student of liberal arts. And my professor kind of told me about ARISA. That's how I joined ARISA. But I joined at a point where I was just beginning my work experience. This is my first real job. And I'm so glad, like everyone said. So I can relate to everybody's stories a little bit because first, it's a women-led team and that's just amazing. You can see how genuinely happy we all are about our jobs. And I wanted to try working in a translational research space. And that's what I am able to do at ARISA. I am doing research, but then I am doing research for social impact, social change. So it is meaningful research, which is really rewarding to me personally. And I am very, very, very grateful to have had this opportunity. So thanks, Kohinoor.
Stop saying thank you. Cut out all the thanks. Cut out our video, please. Take it. Okay, we'll talk about it later, post the podcast. But yeah, thank you, Shreya. Thanks for that. And I'm glad people are having happy experiences at ARISA. Like, I think that's the goal for sure. So, Shraddha, do you want to go next and contribute your little bit without thanking me?
I will try. So, hello, I am Shraddha and I joined ARISA as a social media designer in around July. I think so this must be my 6th or 7th month. And like Sanjana said, the reason I joined it was because I saw the application first on Instagram and I was like, oh my God, it's an organization that is psychology and art, because I have often had very conflicting interests when it comes to things like I have done Bharatanatyam, I've done like fine arts, I've done digital art, and I also do psychology. So I could not find anything before this which joined everything, into a singular place, and I could amalgamate like all of it and contribute and be able to talk at length about all these interests that I have and have people reciprocate with same interests. And also the fact that we are multidisciplinary and come from different backgrounds gives so many new insights that I would not have had from, let's say, a clinical or a counseling workspace. So I am so grateful to be here, and I love making designs for us. I love putting my creative vision to the content that we have. I'm like, look, this is what it is, and I love talking about it to everybody that I meet. I'm like, oh, it's so cool. Yeah, love being here.
And we love your design. And your design. Yeah. So thank you, Shraddha. We really enjoy your designs. Happy to have you on board for sure. And last but not the least, Hansika, you're the latest joinee.
The newest member to the team, yes. Hi everyone, I'm Hansika. I am a light artist. I also do mixed media work. And I've only been with ARISA for about 3 months now, but I've been hired as a creative coordinator. But there's just so much more to it than that. Like there's creatively organizing stuff. There's just the cross learning has been so beautiful in the last 3 months, and the amount of just learnings that I've been able to get through each one of the members of the team. It's been beautiful. So I I mean, specifically come from a design and art background, but it was during my time in Australia when I just started entering the science space. And I'm like, this is an interesting combination, the intersection of arts, technology, science. It's really interesting. But I was more inclined towards the design and the arts side of things. And when I moved here, it just so happened that a friend shared a resource profile with me, and he's like, you know what, these guys are actually doing the same thing that you do, but they're more inclined towards the science side. And I'm like, this is actually a really good mix, like learning from them and doing something with them could be something really great. And then that's when I joined ARISA. It's been 3 months now, and super, super, super grateful to be here. Very happy to learn from each one of you, and very excited to see where this takes me now.
Right back at you. I think we're all excited for the future.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone. And to all of you, this is just like 10% of, their experience and their skills and everything, every experience that they come from. There's a lot more which I have seen in the past 1 year. I will get to that later. But I think as a woman in STEAM, there are challenges that come across, right? You're conditioned to believe it's not for you. You're conditioned to believe that the other gender is better at it than you. You're also given lesser opportunities. We often do not see leaders, right, who are women in these spaces. So I would like to hear from you how your experiences have been, what have your challenges been, and I'm sure there must have been a bit of change as well in all the fields that we have worked in. But yeah, how have you seen people overcome these challenges?
If I can start, I think one thing I really want to bring up is that challenges I felt growing up and like as an adult or whatever part of my life you can address as an adulthood has been this fear of making mistakes and not being able to cope with it, especially when it comes to complicated subjects like science and math, where first of all weren't encouraged to take up math and science, more of a do social studies, do history, do English. It's nicer, it's easier, it's like a story for you to understand, all of that. And if you did math, it was also like, oh, use your logic. How are you not getting it? It's so easy. Why can't you figure it out? Especially for me, coming from a neurodiverse background, it was difficult to grasp topics if people didn't spend time to explain it to me. And I felt like to every role, I had to arrive fully prepared and with skills and with like I had to be best at the job even before I started off doing that. But what I felt at ARISA was I think something that Kohinoor also told me during one of our initial phases was that you can learn. We'll teach you. You don't have to know everything. So join and like try it out. If you don't figure it out, it's fine. We can help you and we can like troubleshoot it. It's communicating it as like part of the solution. So just, if you don't know something, talk about it and it can always be solved based on that. And I think that's something I've felt lacking in more of the other aspects of my life, where making mistakes wasn't an option, or if it was an option, it felt like a death sentence. And especially being a woman making mistakes in difficult situations, like especially difficult subjects in STEM, it felt like people are just waiting for you to mess up, you just need to go wrong. One tiny thing you do wrong and they're ready to say, this is not for you, stay home, do something else, do something easier. So it felt really comforting to know that I can make mistakes and I can still learn and it's not the end of the world.
So I think also to add similarly, like when I was, let's say, in school and things, I used to feel very similarly where I used to, even when I knew concepts and even when I understood, because I used to learn by myself afterwards because it made no sense in class. Because before the teacher could teach the concept, there were people, especially, boys in class, who would already go to coaching. They're like, yeah, we know this. And so I was struggling, but even when I knew things, I would not have the confidence to, let's say, actually talk about them. And that has even followed through to this day, where even when I know that I have experience in a particular area, I don't feel confident enough to vouch for myself. Yes, I am competent in this, because there's always, like Tanvi said, like you're under surveillance all the time. And coming to ARISA also made so much more refreshing because all of us, like, we are encouraged to take up space, and that is something that I really, needed, and it really helped me, be more confident in my abilities.
Yeah, I think that's a recurring experience for a lot of us. I think each one of you, I think I've spoken at some point or other, has something similar. Whereas kids were told that something's not for us as girls, and something is for us because we're girls. And also coming from a fairly conservative extended family, I remember having this conversation with my grandmother that you can choose the arts because it's easier one, and it's also giving you more time to then take care of the family and settle down and have a husband, and like then it's something that's on the side, but it's not the focus of your life. Clearly, I didn't listen to her, but like I still remember being driven by those, by what society tells you. And Sanjana's known me for a decade and a half, and at the very initial stages of our friendship, I would tell her, sure, like if I had to get married at 23, 24, maybe I'll think about it, because that's all I knew. I had never known another world where I could be the founder of ARISA, where I could be a neuroscientist and do things that no one had told me that I could do as a kid, right? Like, it's not like they stopped me actively, but it was a narrative that was part of every one of us. I think in Bollywood films, in society, in people telling us in school, in also neuroscience literature that I came across from ages ago, which talks about sex differences. And my God, it's like absolutely horrible. And if I don't think I can curse on this podcast, but it's really bad, right? And there's papers and papers of research on sex differences that talks about how males are better at math and females are better at English or something like that. And it's really biased research, very low sample sizes, or in brain, like in a lot of medical fields, papers say things like, oh, we only studied 100 males because the female body was too complex. Like, it's bad, right? It's really bad. And I'm just glad that things worked out in a way, and I met people who showed me different perspectives and diverse perspectives of living my life, of being different, of being whoever I wanted to be, right? And I, like, even now I work with so many amazing people like you all, and I feel that having those different perspectives just makes such a big difference, and having that exposure has like changed my life around. Because if I wouldn't have met people like Emily, who was my supervisor during my postdoc, for example, one of the like, she's my mentor and icon, I would say. Even Rukmini Vijay Kumar, who's on our advisory board as well, along with Emily. If I hadn't met those people, I don't think I would have known that there is another life outside of what I think there is for me. So yeah, that's also.
Speaking of which, 2 years ago, if you asked me what a neuroscientist looked like, I would say some old man with white hair in a white lab coat, fully, tall, skinny dude who's probably never seen sunlight.
With spectacles.
With spectacles. And that's exactly, that's the caricature, the Einstein caricature I would come up with when you say neuroscientist. And now if you ask me what a neuroscientist looks like, and to be very, very honest, I only know women who are neuroscientists. And they're all drop dead gorgeous, no grey hair, no wrinkly eyes. They have seen enough sunlight. So yeah, it really has made a difference talking to women, especially who are accomplishing so many things in their lives and are able to proudly say, you know what, I'm a scientist. I'm like so badass and cool that I do science. It's so fun and it's very refreshing. And I hope that my nieces and nephews and all the kids that we meet at Creative Lab Festival go home thinking that, okay, that lady is a neuroscientist. So there are women who do things like this. It's very possible. I just need to figure out how to get there.
Yeah.
And I think that's really cool.
Yeah, we had someone say at the last festival that they wanted to be a neuroscientist and they didn't know that it existed before. So yeah, a little girl only.
Yeah.
Something I'd like to add here is with the festival, right? Like when we were doing the setup stuff as well, all of those labor intensive jobs, they're mostly considered to be done by men, right? Yeah. And I think the whole team at the venue that we were setting up, they were all shocked and amazed at the same time, because we are all lifting ladders, we're moving big panels, we're like doing labor intensive work. And I think there was a lot that we sort of opened up for people around us in terms of what jobs are specifically meant for women versus what are meant for men. And that just breaks the whole stereotype of what scientists are, what neuroscientists are, what artists are, because we all do a bit of everything. And that's the most beautiful part of being here at ARISA. There's no, hey, I am only a creative coordinator, so I'm not going to do this, or I'm a woman, so I'm not going to lift a ladder, you know? That's like really, really fun. Yeah.
I'd like to bring up 2 points from the conversation we've had. One is in terms of research, because for the majority of my academic journey, I've been a student and now I'm doing a job. You come across research which is by men for men, a lot of it. And when you're just starting out learning about how to do research, how to conduct research, you're almost always taught about the convenient ways of doing them. And like Kohinoor said, mentors play a very big role in broadening your horizon of how to do research. I consider myself lucky to get enough exposure to understand that, hey, inconvenient research is the research we need to learn more about women and other genders. And so this is the one point I wanted to talk about. Another is when we go to workplaces, sometimes, I mean, almost always, women are kind of conditioned into thinking, aren't you asking for too much? So in job spaces or in internship spaces, work spaces, when you're starting out, there's always this question of, am I asking too much? Can I do this? Can I do that? And just removing these boundaries and letting your creativity flow in spaces where your thoughts are encouraged, your voice is being heard, just brings out so many different perspectives to work that could actually create an impact. And you're not inhibited into this one box where, like, this is your job XYZ and you do this and you go home. So
adding to that, like especially the second point that you spoke about, mentors and opening perspectives, I have been very fortunate and I think also privileged to work with and to find mentors who have been women who are in leadership positions, or maybe they are doing something on their own. Like even back when I was in college, one of my mentors was this woman who I was really inspired by, and a lot of my work ethic and my beliefs and thoughts at that time were influenced by her. So I feel this exposure to women leaders, women doing different things, brings about so much change that even if you're conditioned, when you see that, oh no, but you know, this is not what is happening. I can see people leading things successfully. I can see people doing things successfully. That exposure and people's accessibility to these people needs to be brought up somewhere. And I hope that when we speak about all these people in our podcast or in general also, this is what we bring about to our audience too, in case there is a lack of accessibility there.
Yeah, no, agreed. I think the whole point about exposure is only something I realized was important after I got the exposure. I didn't recognize the privilege of having it before till a few years later, and I actively sat down and reflected on what's changed the course of my life from being that girl who was like, sure, I'll get married and like settle down, and but nothing wrong with that, right? Like my choice, right? But that was to a certain extent influenced by society, to being someone totally different who I feel like is the more authentic version of me, right? And if I think down and reflect, I mean, it started also with my family. So my grandmom, even though we have very different outlooks towards life, she was also a rebel in her own way when she was growing up, and so was my mom, and so were the many women that I actually then realized, oh, if I wouldn't have interacted with all of them and been exposed to all of them, I wouldn't have been the person I am today, right? And sure, also the men and other people in my life contributed to that. It's not like they didn't. But I think to break stereotypes and to unlearn all of the things that we've been taught as kids about how a girl should be and how a woman should behave or be, I think for that, especially having more diverse representation in any field that we work with was really important. And to go back to what we were talking about, women neuroscientists and scientists, I also feel there's this also like just unrealistic assumption and emphasis on science being difficult and art not being difficult as well. Because I took arts because I love dancing, but I never for one second felt that it was easier than science. You know, even during my PhD where I had to now go into neuroscience, I was like, it's as difficult or it's the same as it was when I was doing my dance theory, for example. It just wasn't taken seriously. It's like if I had a dance exam, it was like, whatever, right? But if I had my school exam, S1 paper, science 1 paper, the next day, it was a little bit more serious. But it's still the same amount of effort you put in both things, right? So I think that is also so gendered because a lot more women end up coming to the arts. So I think it's a bi-directional thing where women aren't taken seriously and arts isn't taken seriously because it's women there. So yeah, like a vicious circle.
And I think that comes in because people fail to see the interdisciplinary nature of everything. We have compartmentalized things so much. For example, dance. It's impossible to do that without a solid understanding and foundation in mathematics, right? And because you lose that interdisciplinary perspective, because you just see dance as like something visual, okay, you see movement and that's dance, you lack the depth of it, the understanding of it, and thus you just categorize it as something that's, and that doesn't fully represent what it actually is. So I think understanding that interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary angle to each and everything, right, each and every profession, art, is very important.
Yeah, for sure. And intersectional as well, right? So, like getting perspectives from marginalized, diverse communities, not just marginalized, but also traditionally underrepresented communities in whichever field we work in, right? Like, if we are only always talking about just one community that's like visible to people in the media, in films, etc., then we're like losing out on so many diverse voices that we would never like actively reach out to, right? And that's what we want to do. We want to reach out to those many different perspectives that are coming in because they actually make up 80% of the world, but we are focusing only on the 20% that's like the creme de la creme or whatever they want to call it. So also that is super important.
I think while we are on the topic of interdisciplinary and intersectional approaches, Sanjana, I would like to hear from you because you have worked with a lot of communities. How has your experience been in these perspectives?
So we are talking about intersectional and interdisciplinary factors like that can create impact. And when I was working with public schools, right, we were trained in how we can go there, how we can take group sessions, how we can take individual sessions, and they had also spoken to us in general about like, okay, be aware of their background and you can modify and accommodate your therapy in that way. But there was a fixed mindset that we had learned through theory, through just working with people from a specific community or like, from the communities that we generally work in. So we went there thinking that this is what we want to teach them or this is how we are going to handle them. But going there and looking at the students' responses to whatever we are saying and to their reasons why they are not maybe responding to it or why they think that they think differently or why they are rejecting certain things, we realize that we can't have the same mindset for all communities. People are coming from diverse backgrounds, different socioeconomic circumstances. They have had different political impacts on their communities, and those things need to be taken into consideration while working with them on whatever topic we want to work in, and those mindsets have to be different. And once we started considering that, we started modifying our activities, our techniques, or even the mindsets of what we want to do with them accordingly. So like for anger management, for example, maybe breathing deeply is not the best way to go about if there is violence right in front of you or you are going to be in danger. So there have to be different techniques, and we realized that impact in that sense would be very slow. For us, the goal didn't become that we have to change them, but the goal became more of, okay, we are providing you alternatives. These are things that you can use wherever you feel it is right. Like, we started trusting them to understand what their situation is. And then over the year, they would sometimes come and tell that, oh, right, instead of doing this, we use your technique and it worked for that particular situation. And for that was the impact, not that they changed completely, which later on we felt like that was an unrealistic expectation to have from a completely different community, completely different background. So intersectionality, I feel, is extremely important. Those diverse voices are extremely important. So we can have knowledge, but how to use that knowledge has to come from the people that you're working with.
That's so valid. It's like a personal crisis, ongoing crisis I have about like how to be a good feminist. And I think something all of us struggle with over here is what's a good feminist. And there's also like, okay, is it enough to be a good feminist? Should I also be a sustainable feminist? Are my sustainability practices coming from a privileged point of view? Should I like be anti-capitalist feminist? Like it's just so much happening constantly and decisions you have to make, in like one of the best conversations I've had in the past 15 days is about choosing your battles, which one to fight, which one not to fight. And I think especially when it comes to figuring out identities about feminism and intersectionality itself, it's always a battle. It's a battle do you want to lose, or is this the hill you want to die on? Is there a better battle waiting for you the next day? And I think that's a big life lesson I have learned about like learning to prioritize, especially being a woman. There are so many identities you are expected to take on a nurturer, a caregiver, somebody who has solutions, but somebody who's docile and polite and who will support you, but also clean up the mess after you and all of that. It's just so conflicting. Like, who am I supposed to be today? And am I being the right version of myself? Am I meeting all of your expectations? Am I also looking after myself? It's just so chaotic all the time. Like, do I care for everybody else? Do I practice self-care? And it's just, I think, biggest lesson has been which battle I'm supposed to fight, when am I supposed to fight it, and how can I help people around me pick and choose battles. And I think I've gained like a big support system over here with ARISA, because there are certain times where I just don't have the energy or the bandwidth to have certain arguments, and I have folks telling me it's okay, we can do this tomorrow, this go home, sleep, the problem will remain and you can come back and deal with it tomorrow. And I think that's been really helpful, and I don't think I would have found a support system or a community like this outside of ARISA, and I credit all the amazing women we have with us today for creating such a nurturing and such a safe space for me.
To add to the conversation, there's another like resounding question always going on is how do you handle privilege? And which is like a big question which comes with the topic of intersectionality, and why interdisciplinary education or workplace is important, because only if you have these perspectives in your mind while you are studying something or while you are actually applying what you studied, you will be able to bring out ideas that is not just for this 20% of the people that we were talking about, but the real meaning of being inclusive and accessible. So yeah, this is something I wanted to bring up, that how do you handle your privilege and what do you do with your privilege? Are you just talking about underserved communities, or are you letting them use their voices to bring about their stories?
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think touching on what all three of you've just said about intersectionality and interdisciplinarity and the idea of privilege, I think privilege for me for the longest time in the last couple of years was something that I've struggled with also, because I see the privilege I have, right? It's firsthand, it's there. I know where I'm coming from. I know what like my family has done to bring me here and for me to be here. And for the longest time, I had a lot of guilt, that, oh, why am I so privileged, right? Like, why am I blessed with all of these things, like a family, money, whatever it is, right? Like, but then I read this article on LinkedIn, and I've really forgotten who wrote that, so I can't credit them, but I'll try to find it, which talked about how you kind of acknowledge privilege, and it's what you do with it that's more important than sitting in a space and feeling guilty about it. And that really turned my head around, and I was like, that makes so much sense. Like now I have been given this opportunity. What do I do with it? Like, and also I'm also learning. It's not like I was born with privilege. It came to me recently, and so now I feel okay, now I'm in a position to make some kind of impact with my privilege. What's the direction that I go in? What's the best impact I can make in the resources and circumstances that I have? Where is it that I want to go? And I think that conversation is very much facilitated with diverse perspectives. So that comes from my multidisciplinary background, from the interdisciplinary background and intersectional perspectives that you folks bring to the table. The kids who we work with at Creative Lab Festival also bring in their own perspectives. The schools we've previously worked in, the people, even the deaf and mute communities who came to CLF, the disabled people who came, like every single person who came and contributed their bit and had a voice at that platform also made an impact on how I view us as a team and how I view ARISA as an organization. So I feel like that, I mean, without the multidisciplinary and intersectional, interdisciplinary perspectives, we would never get there. And there's just so much more to learn. I mean, every day I'm reminded of, sure, I have this privilege and I acknowledge it and I want to use it, but every day I have to sit and think about, okay, there are 500 new things that I want to learn to make sure that I'm making the right use of my privilege. So I think that conversation also is so much more like, it's fulfilling and rewarding because of these multidisciplinary perspectives.
I'd like to add something here as well with regards to the interdisciplinary approach. So, not many people know, but I do come from an interior design background, right? And I have spent 4 years and I've worked also for 2 years in the interior design space. And during my time there, I just realized like I did not want to do like a cut and paste job, like not to say that that's what interior designers do, but just the spaces that I was designing, it lacked emotion, it lacked depth. And that made me pursue a master's in design innovation and technology. And that was sort of like a eureka moment for me where I'm like, you know what, like the tech is able to offer me so much more in terms of emotionality and depth. And me integrating those learnings with what my base practice as a designer is. And when I sort of combine those two things, I was able to generate and create designs that sort of, surpassed a lot of conventional boundaries. Like there was so much more impact, there was so much more, additional weightage I could add to my spaces and my designs through that. And I think and then there an added layer of science to all of this, right? So my current practice, which is at the intersection of art, technology, and science, that combination has, I mean, every person that sort of walked into the immersive rooms that I create, like, they've all left with a very, very beautiful feeling of connectedness, of interconnection. And I don't think, even if you were to remove one of these three elements, I wouldn't say the impact would be half as strong. So 100% agree. And I'm so glad to see that all seven of us are able to, we're not only working in one direction, we're so, I think we're like sponges, all of us. We're like soaking in everything from everyone. And somehow in our weird brains, it's all making sense and it's creating and resulting in something new.
Yeah, I think that's so true about technology. The kind of impact that you can have, it's just multifold when you add technology to it. I was working with an organization where we were, imparting life skills through performing arts, and then COVID hit. And doing performing arts online for an underprivileged community where they have limited data every day, how do you do that? And feedback is such an essential element of learning in anything that you learn. Yes, you can do text-based feedback, but how do you do text-based feedback for dance? Like, for example, someone needs to straighten their hand. How do you tell that over text, especially to kids, where even language is a barrier? And that's where I think Loom came into picture. And I'm not sure if you've heard of Loom. Loom is a tool that you use. It's a screen recording tool, but it's also much more than that. You can have a screen, like a video playing. You can also have a speaker, and you can increase the size of the speaker tile. on the platform. So we used that so that the dance facilitators, the dance teachers could give feedback to the students, and this video can be seen in different qualities. So the data issue also gets resolved, and that helped so much in helping kids understand how they can improve their dance skills, especially with limited resources. And Loom has a non-profit license also. So I think like the more we explore technology in all the fields, like be it education, be it arts, be it science, be it research, it's only going to amplify the impact. So yeah, I just wanted to add to what you said.
Yeah, and with the advent of AI, I feel like AI is everywhere, and we have had many discussions about it, right from whether that should be the theme of a festival or not. And I think, I mean, as many advantages there are to tech, there are also many disadvantages to tech, to artificial intelligence, particularly as well, because it's based on data that comes from the world, and the world is inherently biased. And I feel there are so many parallels to, about art. People say that art is a reflection of society. Like what we see is usually what is seen in society, whether it's the films or the paintings or music or dance or whatever. And I feel that about artificial intelligence as well. Artificial intelligence right now is also a reflection of society. And if society is in and of itself biased, the data that we take from that AI is based on is also going to be biased. So then to use it in spaces where we are trying to reach underserved, underprivileged communities, we also have to be mindful of that fact that what way are we using it, and for what, and for whom are we using it. And it brings back to what Sanjana mentioned before about communities that you're talking about and their needs and where exactly it fits there. And I mean, I'm not against AI per se, but I think the usage of that and the ethics of that is just something that isn't talked about enough and isn't inclusive as of now. I really hope that we go towards a world where it does become that. But right now, I think it's still in the baking process. It's not yet come out of the oven.
Also, when you talk about AI and how the ethical, considerations that go into using AI for various fields, there's also another thing that's coming to light now, how sustainable AI is, because the things that you're doing, the amount of energy it takes for the data centers to give you what you need, is it actually sustainable, the amount of energy and water resources that are going into it, and is it worth foregoing so much energy consumption for something as simple as what is this recipe that I can do.
But
So
but I think the point comes back to utility of these things, right? Data is available everywhere, even medical data. There are so many studies done on, say, depression and menopause. So much of the data that is there is generated off of a population that's not a good representation of the people they're using. And if the pharmaceutical companies are going to use these research papers to create drugs for women, of course it's not going to work. And the model over there also may not be sustainable. Same goes with AI. You can use AI can be really useful, but why are you using it to generate recipes, right?
Yeah.
If you know that so much of energy is going into the production of whatever ChatGPT wants to do, use it for something that's actually going to make a difference. And also make sure that you as a user are able to produce content for AI that is representational. So like one of the biggest issues I have with research studies, especially medical studies, that do anything to cater to women is that they're not done on women. They don't consider the kind of changes women's bodies go through. There are papers on Alzheimer's and on dementia with respect to women, which look at, why do women get Alzheimer's more than men do, and is it related to their hormones? And the papers that look at these things don't take into consideration the kind of food women are eating. Is there enough nutrition in that food? How many of our mothers actually sit and have their meal with all the food that's prepared at home actually on their plate? It's whatever is left over that they eat. How is that nutritious? It doesn't take into consideration the kind of toxins tampons put into your body, or what do painkillers do to your hormonal imbalances, and like what do birth control pills do to your body, and if you're on that cycle for so long, the representation, the data that we're collecting to create these models to sort of make life better, is it making life better for the people you're saying you're making this for, or is it just like a altruistic act you're putting on to say I'm doing something good, I'm doing something for the betterment of society? Is it actually doing something? Are you actually making society better? Is also something we need to look at. And speaking of representation of women, I also feel there's this huge other section of society, people who are non-binary or who don't fall into the cis-het genre of people who are even less represented and doubly marginalized, and it doesn't show up in any of the studies we do, research we do. Even as a researcher myself, I am at fault over here because I don't give you option to specify your gender or your sexuality. It's always other, and it's always because it's convenient. It's easier to code that data, and there are so many things we sort of skip out on, but I'm very happy that we are evolving and turning things around to a point where we are able to see these things as being wrong, and we're making an effort. And at this point, I'm very grateful for that small effort that we're making, even if it's just within this team of 7. And the fact that we're all yapping queens, and we go talk to other people around us and we say the same things to them. I'm sure one day it will sort of reach a bigger population.
Yeah, I hope so too. And a couple of things that you talked about, especially when it comes to medicine, there's this beautiful book called Pain and Prejudice. So, like, something on the original, but like Pain and Prejudice is on the medical field and the bias that we face as women in the medical field, not just working, but also as patients. And there's like all of this literature on data on heart attacks, for example, where a lot of women tend to go to doctors and say, oh, I have certain symptoms, and doctors just send them home because they don't take them seriously. It's the same with period pain. People go with period pain and doctors are like, oh, it's just periods, go home, and it turns out to be endometriosis or something else that's really harmful to the woman's body and health. And that's like one whole other thing that could be a whole other podcast. But also what you said about research being inclusive, and all of us as people and even as an organization, we don't have a trans representation, for example, and that's something we do need to actively work towards, and not just for the sake of, oh, we have a DEI team and we do recruitment which is diverse, but hey, we do need diverse voices, right? And even reaching those people can be sometimes, it's not as difficult as we sometimes think it is. It just needs a more intentional it needs intention basically, and I think we could do better, but I think we're also evolving like Tanvi said, and we're trying to be a drop in the big bad ocean of the world, but we're trying to get there, and I think a lot of people are doing amazing work in that space. So I think it's really good that we are talking about it, at least, and having a conversation. But also something you said about medicine and in general representation really put me back in my college days, feels like it was so far ago. I'm not that old, but I remember talking about this, about representation, about also talking about pursuing a PhD or something with one of my college professors. And I remember this one thing that he said to my face, which I found was really just how do people do this? Is that what will you do by doing a PhD? You just have to go get up and get married later anyway.
Cancel this person right now.
In my head, it's done.
He said it in those words. He was like, PhD करून काय करणार आहे, नंतर तसंही लग्न होणार आहे. And I just remember, and I remember Sanjana was there. I met this professor, I came out and I said to Sanjana, this happened. And we were shocked. We were shocked that someone said this, and I didn't have the balls to, say something against or bad or something to, I don't know, I wasn't as confrontational back then. So now in retrospect,
You're almost always just shocked at the audacity.
Yeah. How do you
period is so long.
how do you get past the audacity to actually come hit them with some logic? Like, I'm so baffled by some people's ability to say things out loud. Like, that's supposed to be your inside voice. Why are you saying it out loud to people?
So the conditioning that we were exposed to as well, where we didn't actually have the audacity to say it back, right? Because we were so used to listening to this.
I think that also it like the fact that we enjoy working in a woman-led team, in a team which is mostly women, is also that because of all these things, all of us are so considerate about each other. That's what makes it such a nice environment, because there is no audacity to deal with. You're like, oh no, she'll understand. It's fine, and you're able to talk about things much more comfortably than you would otherwise.
One very crucial thing that I hold very close to my heart about working at ARISA is that I have not felt like a product of capitalism or a pawn in the corporate sector, which has really made a big difference to my mental health. I cannot express how good it feels to know that you're not just another number or a replaceable human being, but you hold value. You bring certain aspects to the table that are not replaceable, and you're not just, somebody who'll come and go, but a valuable being. Because I think most of the time we are always reduced to statistics. You're a class of 100 people, or you're one of like 3-4 siblings. You are numbers at the end of the day, no matter what happens, unless you're privileged single kids. But I feel like, I don't know, I feel like every time I thought about growing up and was asked what's your dream job, first of all, wild concept that you have dream jobs, that you dream about jobs, but then whenever you're asked, you sort of think you're going to sit in a cubicle and you're going to be in that grey, white and beige environment, and there's no color in those kind of dreams, and I'm very lucky that every time I think about working and coming to Pune to work, there's so much bright, happy pictures in my head of like sunny skies, and it's really picturesque, and I think it is making a big difference, because I talk about my work life with my family and my nieces and nephews, and I'm able to build a picture for them that's very different from the picture I grew up with. And I feel very lucky to be able to do that. I'm also able to tell my family, the older people in my family, saying that it's okay to ask for space and not be invisible. And, it's okay to demand to occupy certain space and be an individual, which I think ARISA has given me the chance to do. The space to breathe and exist and be myself, apart from being like, say, reduced to the title of my job.
That makes me very happy.
I have goosebumps. Continue her story.
Yes. Is there more to the professor?
Professor's story. No, that was it. I mean, what more could there have been? I mean, now I go to him, I'm like, I'm not married, bro, but I do have a PhD. And I'm doing a lot with it. So, beware of the doctor title. If he say, I don't think he can say it now, because I think he can figure out the intimidation or the confrontational part of my personality is on my face now a lot more than what it was 12 years ago when he said this.
I hope you went back and you're like, it's Dr. Kohinoor now.
I did. I totally did.
As you should. I had to collaborate with a bunch of engineers for the first time, and I come purely from a social sciences background. And why it was difficult was, first, I was not seen as an equal in terms of academics. They couldn't see me in the eye. They had questions about what psychology. So that's one problem I see in terms of having interdisciplinary collaboration and just having the respect for multiple streams.
Yeah, and I think that points to a larger issue in STEAM in general, right? Like STEAM as a whole and STEAM individually as well, right? All the branches of science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics. Thank you, folks. All of them basically have this issue, which I think is at its core, it's a lack of awareness. And I feel that is something that has to be tackled both on an individual level, but more importantly on an institutional level, right? Like there's only as much we can go about, hey, do you know about open science, or hey, do you know about feminism, or hey, do you know about all these other perspectives that exist in the world? We can't do that every day, every single hour and second of our lives. And that also points to another issue of invisible labor, right? Like if we talk about being women in STEAM, and we as women are also then working for women in STEAM, we are taking out time from our day to work on things to uplift ourselves, which is taking time off of the work that we need to do, which men don't have to do.
Exactly.
Or which other, more privileged people in communities don't have to do. And women in other marginalized communities, whether that's trans people or non-binary people, or other marginalized communities in other, like non-Brahmin families, for example, Dalits communities, all communities that have been traditionally underrepresented, have to spend more time uplifting themselves, which takes out from their work or their time at home, their time at work. And then people are talking to us about, hey, you're not being as productive as other people. But then where do we find all this extra time to uplift ourselves, right? And so I think that is a big systemic issue that needs to be dealt with on an institutional level.
I want to add one quick thing to that. I think another big systemic issue I see is that everybody's okay with having women and non-men folk be at the lower levels of work. Up higher the pyramid goes, the more okay they are with having men take the decisions. Seeing a woman in a authoritative roles just seems very uneasy to most people, but I also think more women and people who are not very traditional in their norms find it more accepting or comfortable to work under women, because there's more compassion that you associate with the women. You expect women to be more empathetic, you expect women to be more understanding, and when you are from an underprivileged background, you want some sort of comfort and empathy coming from the top, right? And I think that is something we really lack, is that people who are compassionate, people who we associate all these nice feminine traits to at the top. And I think that's something that needs to change.
Yeah, and I think that's also heavily linked to this assumption that someone who's empathetic and compassionate, we were talking about this before, right, will not be as productive in this mad capitalistic world. But it's not true. I mean, we're all women, and look at the amount of work we've done, not to just, like praise ourselves and be like, oh, Arisa is so awesome. But I feel like each one of us contributes so much above and beyond what's the traditional 9 to 5 job that you might be expected to do, that I feel empathy and compassion just add to the productivity. They don't take away from it. And companies or corporates or any multi-level, multinational organization or the government or any institution basically needs to take into account that productivity is not just defined by how much money you make or how much, like, how many hours you work. Exactly.
What's your utility?
It's very different, exactly, and it's very different to every different individual and what they can contribute to the society and the betterment of society. Or even in like monetary terms, if we do longitudinal studies, I'm sure we'll find that institutions which have empathy and compassion at the heart of their core, at the heart of their value systems, actually are more successful than those that harp on being, productive and just strict and disciplinarian.
I think that's also because we need to start acknowledging that the definition of success is changing. It's no longer just how much money you can make, because I think, at least for my generation, we have no hopes of buying land, building houses. That's that's alien for us. But for me, success is being able to prioritize my mental health and be able to tell my friends and family that I'm not feeling great, I want to spend some time by myself, and not be judged for not being productive or saying that, oh, fully you'll watch TV and sit in bed or what. Like, that should be okay. And I think that would be a successful day for me if I'm able to prioritize myself and feel good about myself.
Thank you so much.
Extremely efficient and productive.
No, but I think as you all can see, apart from not having deep pockets in our pants, there are a lot of other systemic issues that we discussed today when it comes to STEAM, and I'm sure it applies to other places as well. There's still a long way to go. There is a long way to go, and this conversation was just the start of it. But as women in STEAM, at ARISA. We just wanted to start that conversation and do our bit. Please let us know how your thoughts about the podcast, and thank you so much. We'll see you in the next one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yay.